All right. I think we're live. Welcome everyone back to Consultants on a Call Getting Coffee. And once again, I am not drinking coffee today. I've got my pre-workout as normal. And Mike, you're not drinking coffee either. Or what are you drinking?
Just I flavored water. So we got the little shooters that you can put in the water for the different flavors. So try to do as much as I can for drinking water. So no coffee today, but
Consultants on a Call drinking flavored water. Doesn't sound
out of a Vikings cup. Yep.
right. Out of a bite. Oh yeah, and thanks for bringing that up. I probably should owe Mike push-ups or something after his Vikings beat my not 100% Dolphins, but I just got done working out, so I'm not giving you push-ups, Mike. But I will say a reluctant congratulations. I hope you can sleep knowing that you beat up on our backup quarterback.
I'm gonna say we did that with the Saints too. You never feel good when you beat a team when they don't have their starting quarterback in. It's a moral victory. So
it's well, in the NFL, a victory is a victory, and
Yep.
if I was in your shoes, I would be perfectly
take
content
'em.
to play. I'll take backup quarterbacks every single week if I can. But congrats. We get Tua back this week. We'll see what happens. Anywho, all right. So we finished our epic discussion, three-part discussion on agent expectations and whatnot. Before today, we're going to be moving on to database cleanup, tagging, best practices. This is a big freaking deal right now. As the market's shifting, everyone is being advised correctly. It's time to double down on your sphere of influence. People probably developed some bad habits the last few years. Deals were maybe people were kind of coming out of the woodwork, hawking you down to want to do stuff. And now we have to be more proactive and intentional about what we're doing. So, Mike, let's talk about database cleanup. And when we say we want to clean up our database, let's first talk about the database.
I was just gonna say, let's start with, if you don't have a database, what do you want to have in a database? Because I know there's people out there where it's like, hey, I just got all the people in my phone, and so I haven't gotten to the point where I've structured anything yet. So how do I do that? What database do I pick? If you want to, do we want to start there first?
Yeah. So why don't you talk a little bit about what the heck is like when we say database, who are we even including there? Like you mentioned your cell phone. Is it just the people in your cell phone? Is it what else is included there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key is you want to have something where you can put notes, schedule calls, and then add tags like we're going to be talking about. I think those are the keys. Sometimes agents feel like, well, I've got everybody in my phone if I'm a solo agent. Like I have everybody right here. But then if you ever want to send emails out, you need to have them somewhere where you can tag them and pull them. And then two, every day, if you just have your phone, it's kind of like, well, who do I call? What do I need to do? And so the purpose of the database is to be able to help give you structure. And then two, type notes. Because you're going to have, if we kind of begin with the end in mind, you're going to have a business big enough where you're going to talk to enough people where you're not going to necessarily remember everything in your head. Even things like kids' names, pet names, hobbies, things like that. When you call somebody back, you can reference something like, oh, I remember you guys just got a new dog last time. How's that going? And so that's where a database, even if your business is just Sphere, and you're not doing online leads or things like that, it's still really important to be able to take those notes down and then to be able to note timing and motivation. If they mention to you, oh, I'm thinking about moving 2 years from now, well, you want to be able to put that somewhere, because like I said, begin at the end in mind. You're not going to remember that stuff in the future. So have a spot where you can put those notes, schedule those calls, and then have tags where you can send emails, send postcards, do follow-up plans, which will kind of build off of that. And there's so many great databases out there. I just say, pick the one you're going to use. And so if there's one that your market center or your brokerage provides, if there's one that's relatively inexpensive and at least has those basics, great. You don't want to be transferring databases all the time, but at the same time, you don't have to spend a lot of money on a database. You don't want to, we've used this example before on our teams when we're paying for technology where maybe you're paying a high premium, like a Ferrari price for something you're not even using all the bells and whistles. So you don't have to get all the bells and whistles and pay for the bells and whistles if you're not going to use them. So just start with something basic, get in the habit, and as your business grows and you want to pick something more sophisticated, you can.
Yeah, and I usually when I'm talking database, and some people use the terms interchangeably, which is why I wanted to talk about this with you. Like some people, when they say database, they're talking about the CRM, the computer-based system that you're putting your contacts into. Sometimes when people say their database, they're referring to, the humans in my business, or the humans that I might try to get business from, whether they're leads or sphere of influence. Both are really important. We need to accumulate the leads and sphere of influence. We need to get them into a computer-based system, CRM. Some people will call that their database. Your brokerage, if you're Keller Williams, you're provided with Command, and different brokerages are going to provide you with some CRMs. If your brokerage doesn't provide you with a CRM, there are Cadillac plans out there that are several $100s up to, or over $1,000 a month or something like that. And there's other plans like some of my clients in the past have used a Lion Desk, which is like, I don't know, like 20 or 30 bucks a month, to help get you really organized. And to your other point about taking notes, especially if you're a sphere of influence, business, you need to know those people super well. And I'm not Sheldon Cooper. Maybe there are some Sheldon Coopers out there, but I'm not going to remember every single little detail. I'm not going to remember, after not talking to someone for 3 months, that their kid had his first travel baseball. Like I found out 3 months ago, the kid had his first travel baseball game. And then I want to ask him about how the baseball season's going. I'm not going to remember that for 200 people. But if I put those notes into the CRM like I should, now when I call that person after 3 months and I remember to ask about how Timmy's baseball season is going, holy cow, that's really impressive. I'm showing interest and care, that I'm caring about something that they care about, which is straight out of How to Win Friends and Influence People.
I was just going to say too, I mean, if you're at the point, like if you don't want to pick a database and then have to migrate something later, let's say you're a newer agent or you're just kind of getting your ducks in the row, I always tell people a good old-fashioned spreadsheet can still work wonders. You can have first name, last name, a call date where maybe you put in there the last time that you called them, and then another one that's notes, and maybe you have a column or two of a couple different tags if you're going to be sending out emails. So it might be even, Sphere email or something like that, and you add a tag. So you can have a spreadsheet do that. And then when you get a chance to research databases and you're like, hey, this is the one I want to go with, the way that databases get your contacts uploaded is through an Excel spreadsheet. So you're already ready to go. And so if you don't have anything in mind and you're like, I'm so overwhelmed with trying to pick a database because I don't want to pick something wrong, just start putting your people in a spreadsheet, because any database, that's how you get started anyhow, is importing your contacts from a spreadsheet. So create that spreadsheet, and you don't have to pay. And then you don't have to worry about, how do I do a database migration sometime down the road? They'll just ask you for your spreadsheet. So you've got that. So I think that's the best starting point if you haven't done anything yet, is just get it in the spreadsheet.
And one way to get stuff into a spreadsheet really quickly is to export the contacts from this thing to an Excel spreadsheet. And I have an iPhone. I don't have an Android. I don't know how it's done on Android. But it's a little cumbersome to get the contacts out of an iPhone, but you can get an app for $2 or $3, and you can hit a couple of buttons and type in your email, and it'll nicely package, and it'll have first name, last name, cell phone, any other points of data too. You might have emails, you might have birthdays, you might have all sorts of stuff. And again, when we're accumulating the database, ideally we get first name, last name, email address, cell phone number, street address, birthday, and you definitely want a notes column, And to your point, Mike, if you're not even in a CRM yet, you could export that stuff. You could delete all the unnecessary columns, and you could just work off that thing for a while, updating your updating your notes. And the one column I forgot about, and you mentioned, was tags. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Tags are going to be something that's really important in a CRM for sure. Tags, once your contacts are in the CRM, tags are going to help you. I like to tell my people, don't just think of them as being descriptive of your people. A lot of clients, and I'm sure yours as well, Mike, a lot of my clients, when I first see their database, they've got a million tags where they were just in there creating tags to describe this person, right? And then when they do that, one time
6
they
foot
might
tall, brown hair, blue eyes, right?
Miami Hurricanes, long-suffering Miami Hurricanes fan. But you might have in one moment, I might have typed and created a tag for landscaper, right? And then the next time I had someone, it might have been landscaping. And then the next time it might have been, tree guy or something like that. And you've got hundreds of these tags that are one-offs. We want to get organized about the tags. The tags, I encourage people to think about it from a marketing perspective. Think about who are the groups of humans that I'm going to want to grab at some point in time so I can do something with them, like send them an email blast or invite them to an event or something like that. And a big part of getting cleaned up and organized here is probably, if you have a lot, if you're one of these people that have hundreds of tags, you're going to want to streamline it. And we'll talk about that some more. But why don't you talk a little bit about some of the things that you've seen, Mike, where people kind of got it wrong and how you helped them get it right?
Yeah, I mean, I think first, if you do something like an iPhone dump into a spreadsheet to get started, you're going to immediately feel overwhelmed with, there's all these people, like maybe from high school or college or some random person I met and I have no idea who they are. And so I tell people, start with your, think of it as I'm working like a target. If I'm playing archery, start with your inner circle people first. So don't take a ton of time worrying about the one-off people that you don't necessarily know yet. Like, should I add tags to them or not? So maybe you just start sorting by my most important people, kind of second tier, third tier. And then fourth tier is maybe like, I don't even know who they are. And then you start going with, okay, my top tier people, do I have, I think first thing kind of in terms of cleanup is, do I have their information? And so it's phone number, email address, and address. Now, I tell people once again, if you're not sending postcards right now, you don't have to take the time to get their address. I also tell people as real estate agents, it's our job to know where people live. So we're going to want that address, but don't get so consumed with these kind of side projects that are going to keep you busy for a long time trying to round up everybody's address if you're not going to send them anything right now. And so that's where I say, start with your most important people first, clean that up, get as much data as you can, get some tags on them, and then maybe you move to your next tier of people, and then you move to your next tier of people. So whether you already have them in a database or you're doing like a iPhone dump or something like that, just start with the top people first. Don't get overwhelmed with, oh my gosh, I have 2,000 people or 1,000 people in here. Just start with the first 100 and pick your top 100 people first. Make sure you get that cleaned up and imported. And then maybe you just time block a couple hours a week or whatever that looks like, depending on how much work it is. But sometimes when I've seen agents come on our team and they have large databases and I'm like, okay, go through it and clean it all up. Well, then they just kind of get this analysis by paralysis and they end up not doing anything. And so we don't want that to happen. And so you got to just keep kind of chipping away at that big block of ice to be able to get everything cleaned up. And so, I also tell people, if you're newer in the business, that's such an envious spot to be in, because there's teams out there that have 5,000, 10,000 contacts, and half of them, they have no clue who they are. So it's not that bad to have a couple hundred that you're still sorting through to get figured out. But start with your most important people, get as much information about them as you can, and then start doing tags. And we can dig into the tag piece in a little bit here too.
Yeah. A lot of good stuff there. And I'm gonna piggyback off of something that we talked about the previous few weeks, where we were talking about agent lead gen standards and all that stuff. We talked about how you're supposed to be calling your sphere of influence once a quarter anyway. So this cleanup, even if it took you 3 months to do, at least it's going to be freaking done in 3 months, you know? So yes, when you look at that big list and you're like, oh my gosh, there's, 600 people in here or something like that. It seems like this monumental task. But if you were to look at our rule of 60 and be like, oh, well, that means I've got to call 10 people a day for the next 10 people per weekday for the next 3 months and try to update as much of this contact info as I can for them. Those are bite-sized chunks that I can also do to, those are bite-sized chunks whereby I feel like I could actually do this for the next 3 months. And then after 3 months, I'm in great shape. I've got a nice tight database, especially if people are thinking about doing it right now. Now's not a bad time to be thinking about this because there's, some areas are seasonal, but if you can attack buffing up your database right now before spring hits next year, that's probably a pretty smart thing for everyone to do. Because I know a lot of people are expecting, maybe a little bit less business here down the stretch. Great. Double down on sphere of influence, reconnect with the sphere of influence, tighten up the database so you can kick butt next year.
Mm-hmm. Plus, if people send out, holiday cards or Christmas cards, whatever, great time to ask for the address when you're on the phone. Like, oh, by the way, what was your address here? I'm looking to be sending out more cards to people just to help stay in touch, and you could even use COVID as an excuse. Yeah, I know COVID, we lost touch with a lot of people. So this year I just want to really make sure I'm tightening things up and staying in touch with the people that I care about the most. And so that's a kind of a great excuse way to be able to ask for that stuff. And yeah, if you're on the phone with somebody trying to catch up with them a little bit, oh, by the way, what's your best email just in case I need to send you something or I find something important, that might affect you in terms of real estate or interest rates or whatever. I just want to have your best email address, So instead of asking, can I get your email address? Hey, what's your best email address? And that's another great way to get those pieces of information when you're talking to them.
Yeah, and part of doubling down on the database, we always recommend creating some sort of client appreciation stuff, events, and that's another reason why it's an even easier ask. It's like, hey, I'm going to have, I'm planning on doing these things in the coming year. I want to make sure you get all the information. I just need to make sure I have your straight address, your best email address, so so that you receive that and you're able to come take advantage of the cool stuff that's going to be coming your way. People are going to be more, happy to give you their information when it's like, oh, free stuff's coming my way. I like free stuff. That sounds good to me, Yeah.
And I'll just, to piggyback off of that. If you feel like I've lost touch with a lot of people, I don't have a lot of information, the best and smoothest way to get that is to do some sort of client event. It's, fast forward here, you want to stay in touch with these people in the future. So instead of awkwardly calling and asking and be like, hey, I haven't talked to you for 2 or 3 years. Can I get your information now? Because now I'm in real estate and I want to spam you with all my stuff. That doesn't really go over well. But if you're like, oh, we're actually going to be having this client event, and client doesn't have to mean they bought or sold a home with you. Client means potential future client, right? And so you don't have to get so hung up on, oh, but they just bought a house last year with somebody else when I wasn't in real estate. Well, they might be your future client in the future. And so if it's somebody you want to build a relationship with, it's past clients and potential future clients. And so you can just have a client event, whether it's, your real estate office or market center has something that they're doing you can piggyback off of, or there's something happening in your community that you can piggyback off of, or you want to have people over at your house and a Super Bowl party. You can start small, or, whatever that looks like. That's a really good lead in to get that information. So I think, we're talking about client events, but I think it really helps in terms of if my database is stale and outdated, I think one of the smoothest ways to get their contact information and get back in touch is have some sort of client event. So now we're inviting people coming from contribution versus, hey, can I get your email address to spam you later?
100%. And this for me, in all the years I've been doing this, and I'm sure it's the same thing for you, the number one pain/fear point here with getting into that database cleanup is there's this ugly cloud hanging over the database.